welcome to On the Entrepreneur's Journey, the podcast where we explore how seasoned leaders and founders build strong, scalable companies. I'm Peter Santry, a former Wall Street exec turned leadership team coach, and today's guest has a story full of lessons for anyone growing or transforming a manufacturing business. I'm here with Chad Hammerly, President and COO of Human Active Technology, a company that creates human-centered products designed to make work and technology interactions healthier, more productive, and seamlessly adaptive. His path offers a masterclass in scaling and operational excellence, and will cover his journey from Navy jet engine mechanic all the way through several large companies, and finally to leaving the security of a senior corporate role to take an entrepreneurial leap with Hat Collective. In this episode, we talk about his journey and how it shaped Chad's leadership and what it takes to build a modern manufacturing business and his vision for driving growth in today's challenging market. So welcome to the show, Chad.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good. So let's dive right into the action here. And I love your origin story. And it started with leaving high school and deciding to forego college and considering and going into the military and the Navy specifically. And with all the turmoil around colleges today, I wanted to ask you about what you saw as the benefits of your Navy service and how it informed your career after that, and as you know, going from jet engine mechanic and then for your subsequent jobs in manufacturing.
Yeah, when I was in high school, my parents weren't much of, there was not much thought in preparing me for college. And it just wasn't something they ever talked about. My dad was actually a high school dropout, and my mom graduated high school, but they never pursued anything. And, as I was getting ready to kind of take that next step, I thought, well, I don't really have a good way to pay for this. Really don't know what I want to do. And I don't know that I'm mature enough to handle that yet anyway. So, came across the Navy, and I remember having the discussion with the Navy recruiter, and he asked me what I'd like to do. And I said, well, I like cars. I like working with my hands. I said, mechanic would be pretty cool, and I said, like a car mechanic. And he's like, well, son, we don't have cars, but we have airplanes. Would you like to work on that? And I thought, that sounds really cool. And I signed up, and that was it. I was on my way. And I thought too, at the time, and it's still true today, right? I mean, the military does pay a lot for college once you're in and get some service in. And so I thought, if there is a possibility for me to want to go to college later, that is a way for me to do it without having to go into all kinds of debt that at that time I had no idea how I would ever pay for something like that.
Right. And, given, of course, today's environment is totally different, but what advice would you give a high schooler today, considering their options and maybe in a similar situation? What would you tell them?
It's interesting. I think it's changed a lot. When I was a kid, it was kind of like you had to go to college. You were expected to go to college. So I kind of I broke the norm there a little bit. And I think there was more of a stigma back then when I was a kid of like, oh my God, you're not going to college. But I think today people have turned the other way. Like, you hear so many stories of kids coming out of college, and what's one of the most common stories you hear is they can't find a job, or they can't find a job in their field, and they have all this debt, and they're living at home for so long. And so, I've got two at home now, 21 and 23, and neither really wanted to go to college. I said, I don't know that's for me. I want to work. I want to do things. And, I said, okay. And again, I know when I was 18, I didn't think I was going to college either. I would never, have said, gee, by the time I'm in my 40s, I'll have my master's degree and stuff like that. I never saw that for myself. You kind of figure it out along the way. And I think that's kind of the way my kids are working too. But I think today's day and age, I don't think it's as important. I think, again, it's a shame how much college costs. It's a shame the debt they have on top of it. And then to get out and not find a job, it's not an easy situation. So I think the military is a great option. I think it gave me an opportunity to be on my own, be an adult very, very quickly, right? Because there was no option. You could not show up for work every day. You had the total line, you had to follow the rules. And it was, it just matured you very quickly, I think. And it opened your eyes to different opportunities. Like I said, I never would have thought I would be standing on a bed with a jet engine screaming at 13,000 RPM, and I'm standing right by it trying to fix it and stuff like that. But those were things that he did, and it was really exciting.
Yeah, that's certainly is. So let's skip ahead to your business career. You're a Navy jet mechanic. You graduated from that. You go into manufacturing, sort of in that, sort of a very almost a temporal, and soon 6 or 7 years later, you're running, a major plant. And so it's full, and there generally you ended up taking on turnarounds, manufacturing operations. So tell me, what is your approach to, you become a head of a manufacturing operation, wherever it might be. I know you were at Nestle and Avatech and Honeywell. What do you look for? What's your approach that enables you to succeed in a turnaround situation like that?
Yeah, I think that they've all been similar, right? I mean, again, I walk into a process, I don't really know how it all works. I don't know how you take the widget from the raw material and get it to the output, right? The finished product. But I know there's people in process in the middle, and being able to, okay, I can understand the process, walk me through it. Okay, I got it. I know how to work with people and understand people. And so I think those two things have allowed me to be very successful. In every situation I've ever been in, first thing to do is really go talk to people, see what's going on. I mean, people are going to tell you what's not working, why it's not working. Again, you'll get a lot of opinions, right? But you got to kind of sort through all that, and out of it, right, you'll get some clear themes. And once you have those clear themes, then you've got to start setting your vision of like, okay, how can we fix this? How can we make this process better? But ultimately, Peter, they got to be a part of that. They've got to help, because you going in there just say, hey, do it this way because I say so, is really never going to work. You've got to get their buy-in. And again, I remember going to the plastics plant at Amatech when I was I was really young, and here I am working with people that are all 20 years older than me, and I'm in here telling them how to run the factory, and I'm like, hey, there's going to be a lot of things you'll teach me, and there's going to be a lot of things I'll teach you, and we'll learn together, and we'll figure it out together, and we'll make progress. And we did. And I think just being humble has always been something that I've kept in mind. I mean, again, I remember starting my career at Honeywell and being a temporary mechanic on the plant floor. And I always remember, we'd work out there and the production manager would come out and he'd walk by and never say hello, and then somebody would joke and said, oh, well, wait till he needs you, wait till he needs you to work overtime. Then you're like his best friend. Then he'll come talk to you. And I always remembered that. And I think, when you're walking by people, you always want to say hello. You always want to ask them how they're doing and stuff like that. And, it's always stuck with me. I mean, I don't forget what it's like to be the temporary mechanic on the shop floor when there's no AC and you're asking them to work 10-hour days and stuff like that. So it all stays with me throughout all these years, getting to, keep that in mind and stay grounded about where I came from, and knowing what those people on the shop floors go through certainly helps you to be able to relate to them and work with them, and understand how to help solve their problems.
So really what I hear is starting with the listening and a lot of questions, figuring it out, then of course being humble, and participatory management, getting people to give you suggestions so that they can actually buy into, and when they're adapted, they can buy into the solutions so that they're not being imposed upon them, to their liking or not. And that's kind of the secret sauce to getting people to improve the operation and things like that. And of course, not being inaccessible to people.
Yeah, I think breaking down some barriers, right? I mean, if there's, I think of a particular situation where, there was IT issues where, well, we couldn't get labels to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, okay, well, we need to fix that. Well, we've asked IT. Well, it sounds like nobody's really paying attention to what the operators need. And so how do we raise that issue up and get the right focus on it? Because nobody seems to understand the downstream effect of that. So how do we articulate that better so that we can escalate that properly and get the right focus on it so we can fix it and be successful? Because I remember, one of the companies I worked for, a big company, and I remember they were writing up operators for failing to do something in the computer system. And it was basically, if you missed a quality check, right, you needed to document why you missed it. So it was on the, right on the hour, Peter, right? Every half hour, 30 minutes on the hour, you had to do this quality check. Well, if you were dealing with a machine problem, right, you're dealing with that versus doing your quality check. So if you got to the quality check at 10 after, you know, they wanted you to put some kind of comment in there as to why it was late. Okay, valid. Understand we need to do that. But the system didn't require that. Like the system allowed somebody to put the check in and not add the comment. I'm like, well, we could just make it mandatory, right? Then they can't forget. But I mean, they were literally about to fire people. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. We have an obligation as the leadership to set them up for success. So if we're asking them to do this, what tool can we do or improve to help them with this? Because they're trying to do the right thing by fixing a machine. Because if the machine's down, it's not producing. Yeah, come on, we got to help here. And I think, prior leaders were just like, no, we gotta get rid of people because they're not following the process. Like, yeah, but we can help build a better mousetrap here and figure it out, and so once we put the mandatory field in there, guess what? Nobody forgot anymore, and it satisfied the quality issue that we were having with the organization. But if you don't get out there and listen to them, and again, you've got to own it as a leader too, right? How could we set them up for success? If we don't have the right tools, the right equipment, the right know-how, then you can't really expect them to be successful.
And let me ask you on the floor, I mean, these big companies have huge culture statements that may or may not apply. Did you sort of create your own culture when you were running, come up with your own core values that expressed, your kind of view on or the team's view on the behaviors you wanted to see in the plant? Was that something you went and documented ever?
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, yeah. I mean, it wasn't to some great length. That's, again, we had a lot of good things in a lot of the companies I worked with, processes like TPM and stuff like that. But I've always said with people, I'm big on integrity, doing what you say you're going to do, following up on commitments. I mean, those are just the basics, and if we can't do the basics and we don't have trust, then it's hard for us to work together, So I always think I'm a pretty simple guy, pretty laid back guy. It takes a lot to get me excited, but, following through on commitments is a big thing. If we don't do that, we let the rest of the team down. And like I said, we all have an obligation to each other in order to be successful. And if we're not committed to each other and we're not committed to the process, well, then we're not all going to succeed together.
So, Chad, I know, is a career isn't always successes, and everybody encounters some failures. And I'm wondering if you could elaborate on anything where you either made mistakes or you had a situation where you weren't able to succeed in your role in a company.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been lucky that I've been successful really everywhere I've been. I mean, certainly some roles certainly more challenging than others. I think, one particular role, I think it was again, we weren't aligned as a group on what we wanted to do, and that was hard for me. I remember the motto was one team, 100% engagement, right? And zero incidents was the motto. And that was not the core value of everybody around me. And it was like kind of like, okay, if this is what we're not. I remember having conversations with some of the leaders and saying, well, if this is what we say, if this is what's on the wall, we're not living it, and we've got to get people around it. It can't just be two or three of us living it. It's got to be everybody living it. Right. And, the culture was what it was. And it was, again, it's a big part of culture coming down. Right. So if leaders are acting that way, you're going to get others act that way. And you'll have pockets of it where it's successful and pockets where it's not. But, it definitely demotivates you and it makes you not want to work there. And so, you look for a better environment, and that's what I did.
Yeah, yeah. I can't agree more. If you have a culture and you don't live it, it becomes inauthentic, and then chaos ensues, and you don't get people following you because it's comes across as hypocrisy many times.
Yeah.
So later in your career, you end up with iconic brands like Nestle Water and Ocean Spray, and you're at a point now where you're running Ocean Spray's largest bottling plant, which is pretty big. And what made you get the entrepreneurial itch to go to Hat?
Yeah, I enjoyed a great career at Ocean Spray. It was a great company. The fact that it's farmer owned and just their sustainability stories and things like that, they were such great people. And I loved it there. I really did. But as big of a brand it really is a small company. I mean, it's a company of 2,000 people. Um, I think about 1,600 work in the factories, right? And so there's really only 10 factories and there's limited growth there. And so, again, I wanted to get into a space where I could have a broader span of control of the bigger picture of things. And so, just kind of started looking around and never thought I would end up in business, in office furniture and commerce products. But here I am. I think when I met the team at Hat, I instantly just had a great connection with them. There was an immediate comfort level with the team and just the synergy. You could feel it when you came in the room. It was like, yeah, this team could really gel together. And so, it was a hard decision to leave, Ocean Spray, given what I had accomplished there. But I also knew that if I ever wanted to get to an opportunity where I could be running a company, I was never going to be able to do that there. And so
Right.
that's really ultimately what made me make the decision.
So you're transitioning, you've got a heavy ops background, manufacturing, making goods. Now you have to take into account attracting work, not only doing work, but now attracting it, and you're overseeing the getting paid part of it too. So you're overseeing a much bigger picture. Tell me about the challenges of coming in with that skill set, which of course is, a Hat is manufacturing as well, but it's still, you're taking on these new things. What were the challenges there of going to a much more holistic management role?
Yeah, I think part of it is changing your style, right? Because again, you're focused on a narrower scope of the business, and like you said, now you've got to think more broadly. And I think again, it's about having the right people around you, right? Having the right skills. I mean, I always say one thing that I know about myself is I know what I'm not good at. And what I know I'm not good at, I've got to have the right people around me that are good at it. And so, having that right recipe really of the right people, the right products, the right branding, all of that stuff all comes together to make the right, success story. And I think we have that here at Hat, and it's something I'm very grateful for.
Right. So your humility, you don't understand what you don't understand. Get a good person who can do the marketing. Okay. For those who don't know your company, because it's not the iconic brand, but can you just give us some examples of the types of products that you would come out with and are serving the market today, just so that somebody could get a know what to look for with you or what you're
Yeah,
providing?
so we really focus on someone's workspace. So anything from a height adjustable table to a monitor arm, right? Again, a monitor arm is a great opportunity to get the monitor off your desk. It allows you to work more ergonomically. Height adjustable tables, again, I'm a huge fan now. I never had one prior to working at Human Active Technology, but I love it. I stand a lot during the day. And I even have one at the house now for when I do work out of the house, which isn't often, but when I do, again, it is nice to have that option. My sister saw it. She loved it. She's like, oh, I need one of these for my house. So I got her a setup at home too, because she does work from home. But, so things like height adjustable tables, monitor arms, cable management. We're big into desktop power now. So if you need an outlet and charging capabilities within your reach at your desk station, you can go and get that. We also do a lot of point of sale and commerce products as well. So when we're talking about payment terminal devices and things like that inside stores, we're also diversified in that aspect. So, yeah, furniture and office space is definitely a big market for us, but there's also segments like that in the commerce space that we're working in as well.
So you're in the office furniture business and you're in the middle of a pandemic, and things start to, you're taking over sort of as the pandemic is ending, but it's a challenging time. And you managed to grow the business quite impressively, and I'm sure outperformed many of your peers. In today's environment, you've got tariffs and more, even more complexity, because not all your goods certainly come from here. Without giving away any secrets, how have you navigated this environment, differentiated Hat among the furniture in the furniture community so that you've been able to achieve this growth?
Yeah, again, I think it starts with having the right team around you, right? Again, you're right, coming out of COVID, that certainly a challenging time from the supply chain side, from the market side. And again, I think for us, having the right people in the right roles to really, because I think there was an element of success of the company clearly in its prior history. But COVID changed a lot. And I think as COVID changed, the business has got to change with it. We had some challenges there, but we've been able to manage through that. And it's about creating great products, having the right messaging, the right branding, and having a great sales force that helps us move those products, and great partners and reps and things like that that help us sell them out to our customers, but then also a great supply chain in the back end that can help make sure that we have that product when we need to sell it.
Have you been able to navigate the sourcing issues around? I mean, many of your parts, I think, come from overseas. Am I correct there?
I mean, a portion of them do, yeah.
Right.
But,
And how have you navigated that in terms of did you buy ahead? Did you make a bet on to try to get ahead of tariffs, or what? How did you navigate it?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult to get ahead of it. I think the biggest challenge with tariffs has been, what's next? I mean, right? Because you think something and then something changes. And so, we spent a lot of time over the past few years really, understanding different regions of the globe and where we can manufacture and what we can do and what's a strength here and maybe not so good here and that kind of stuff. And some of it, is still a matter of, well, you don't know kind of what's going to change, right? I think it's certainly calmed down, but obviously like now we have November, I think it's November 14th. There's kind of a determination if fentanyl and reciprocal tariffs get receded. We'll have to see what
This is with China, right? This is with China.
Well, with anybody, I think,
Yeah.
but again, it'll be interested to see what happens at that point. But some of it's been almost like, where does the ball stop bouncing, and then you can figure it out. So we've done a nice job diversifying our supply chain. I mean, that's one of the things I did when I got here, was said, hey, we certainly have to diversify it more, and it's pretty spread out now, and so we're positioned as well as we can be at the moment. But I'm sure there will be changes in the long term as well.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're at today's market. You've got a little bit of a tailwind, people coming back to work. I'm sure that helps because you do have an office exposure. And what's your vision for the next 3 years, and what obstacles do you see that might derail it from here?
Yeah, I mean, our vision is keep growing the company, keep creating great products and continuing to bring them to market, and also back that up with the great services that our customers want and deserve. And so things that could derail it, again, I think tariffs and the economy, everybody's still a little concerned about what may happen, right? I think everybody's been a little concerned that they thought the economy would be slower than it is this year. I mean, things have been busy, which is good. Tariffs, again, hopefully we're getting to the end of that and we kind of know what the playing field is at this point. But again, I still worry that might change more. And then again, I think you're right. We've had, we've seen more return to the office, but does that continue? I mean, we believe it will. I mean, we're what we hear and feel, it looks like it's going to. So I think that's going to be a good thing for all of us as well.
Right, in retail and restaurants and things like that. Exactly. Good. Okay, so if somebody wants to learn more about you or about Human Active Technology, what's the best way for them to find both of you?
Well, I mean, the easiest way would be our website, teamhat.com or hatcollective.com or hatdesignworks.com. Those are really the 3 websites that we have. Obviously, anybody can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect with them. Again, we have a mix of selling through our own sales team, but also through reps and distributors as well. And so, if someone's in an area that is looking to get better connected with us, we certainly have the right way to get them a resource to do so.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, Chad. I love your story, and it's not a direct one, and it's good to see the multiple paths that people take. And thank you to the audience for listening in to On the Entrepreneur's Journey. And until next time, we will see you. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Peter. Again, appreciate you having me.